And yeah, very warm welcome to the 22.9 edition of the Siebel Friday. And let me show the program, the agenda, what we have in mind for today. Of course, let's talk about Siebel 22.9, which is the update of the month. And then there's a bit of announcements on Oracle's side, talk about the Apps Unlimited days a bit. And then I have just selected a few topics which I worked on over the past weeks, like attachment import, custom business services for migration, modern ES6 ECMA script with Siebel. So that's just a few topics I have. Maybe you have a few things on your mind. So please, as usual, don't be shy. Use the microphone if you can, or use the chat to post interesting questions or topics that you wanted to discuss in over the next hour or so. All right. So 22.9 is here or not. It's Schrödinger's update again, because I think has been put under controlled release. Not too sure about that. The Oracle folks will have more on that. But what we can see from the bookshelf and the other public sources, one particular new feature is interesting if you work with the REST Outbound framework, because now there's OpenAPI 3.0 support, also import from URL and filter services. So going to have a quick look at these features. So Bookshelf accordingly has the REST guide updated and zip files for download revised. Then if you run the repository upgrade, I always take a look at that zip file that you can easily open and see there's a new business service, always interesting, SWI-ZFG Object Broker, whatever that means. And like 50 plus web templates being updated. So I caught my eye. And this is an ARIA enhancement. So adding an attribute to the table element, or maybe more, to enhance support for screen readers, etc. And among other things, 22.9 brings a new Tomcat version, just like regular, almost every update, there's a new Tomcat, which is, of course, good for the security folks, less sweating there. The Zookeeper, which is now 3.8 since 22.6, if I don't get it wrong, now comes with actually the Tomcat comes with a default logback XML file supporting the Zookeeper logging there and serving as an example or something you can use to work from. Test automation has a few enhancements. The post-install DB setup HTML report has been refurbished, and certification for OAS, Oracle Analytics Server 6.4, it comes with 22.9 as well. So quite a lot of stuff in the monthly update there. And myself being avid user of the REST framework and REST API. So REST Outbound has had a history. It got interesting in 2 years ago, 20.8, correct me if I'm wrong, when there was like official support, documented support for importing OpenAPI, then 2.0 specs, and now you can, in 22.9 and higher, you can import OpenAPI 3.0 as well as 2.0. Good to know that. And also there is support to read a definition right from a URL. You don't have to download the file. And the Web Tools wizard got updates as well, but only the Web Tools wizard as far as I could read or see. And then there's a huge change, or very welcome enhancements. It's actually adding the ability to define filter business service, so a custom or standard business service if you want, but most probably a custom one to adjust or inspect and adjust or modify the property sets as they pass through before the request and after the response. For example, to help implement any advanced authentication beyond basic auth. So Bookshelf Guide has been completely revised on that chapter, so rewritten. And for example, Siebel Tools has been removed from that portion of the guide as the import tool. So the focus is now web tools as it seems. So here's a screenshot of the web tools wizard, the first page. We now have the option to select a file or upload a file as usual, or check URL, the radio, and then you can paste a URL where a valid OpenAPI source can be found. If that uses HTTPS, of course, it's necessary to update the internal Tomcat Trust Store with the root certificate, authority certificate, so it can trust the other server. It all goes through the internal Tomcat. And if you go to the Outbound REST services view, the REST service lands there as usual. So no change there. It's automatically added to those tables. And you find for each method, you find a new applet there, filters, which allows you to define for each service method 2 business service methods, one request filter, name of business service and method, and a response filter. So that I did a quick prototype. So the request filter gets called before the request goes out. And the property set is already prepared for the request, so the property set representation. So you can modify that before it goes out, or inspect and act on it. And the response is called after the response comes through. After the JSON conversion, you have the property set representation of whatever comes back, and you can inspect and act and modify in eScript, obviously, in your custom business service. Or not sure if you could use a Java business service as well. Well, probably yes. So that is quite a change to the Outbound architecture. I have added in green the custom filter services, which are now available 22.9 and higher, acting on the Siebel server right before the Java 64 Tomcat integration, or after for that. Okay, so yeah, that's the Outbound REST API. Has a lot of enhancements, fully documented in Bookshelf. Any comments on that? Anyone already had some experience with that? No comments there? Okay. Right. So, well received. The crowd goes mild. You're still there. You can still hear me, right? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. It's so silent here. I thought this would be a great discussion point, but okay. Yeah, okay. Some more on the REST API. The new business service you get through the repository upgrade, SWI CFG object broker. Now, I'm probably not the only one who reads like SWI, which is, what was that? Okay, can't remember that, but CFG and object and broker, like is, I always think of the Siebel configurator immediately. So I thought, wow, this is a REST API for configurator. No, I got overly excited there. It's a business service which allows retrieving the complete product structure of a complex product. So you have a root row ID, a root product, and it goes down the hierarchy and retrieves everything, including the structure and attributes and whatnot. It's quite a large output and has a lot of input, which is documented. So that's a welcome addition. Business services can be used internally and, of course, through the REST API, and it's now an official member of the product administration REST API, which has a separate chapter in the REST guide and 2 zip files which go along. You might have seen those zip files in Bookshelf or even downloaded them. And I worked on a prototype recently where I used the Postman collection. It's very useful. So there's a Postman collection and OAS specifications to be downloaded right from Bookshelf. Okay, so next on the list is the ARIA enhancements. So ARIA is everything Oracle does in the Siebel HTML document object model to enable or work better with the concept behind accessible rich internet applications, or ARIA for short. So support for accessibility helper programs like the obvious screen readers for visually impaired people. So you have to add certain attributes to the DOM for these screen readers to figure out what they have to read, and etc. And there's a lot of articles on the web there. And in the repository upgrade 22.9 and obviously higher as well, if you run the repository upgrade, you get an update to around 50 plus web templates. Not sure if all of them have the same change. I haven't investigated that much, but the few I laid my eyes upon more closely, there was the table elements within those web templates. If there is a table element, it gets role equals presentation added as an attribute, which is obviously very important for better support for screen readers, as several articles on the internet confirm. So that is added, but it changes the code of the standard web template. So I was thinking, if you have customized the same web template, and now you do the repository upgrade and the rebase and the merge, you will get conflicts. So you probably need to merge that manually, somehow manage to do that. So definitely pay attention to it if you have customizations on those standard web templates. All right. Yeah, I want to make sure the room is open for comments and questions. So anything you find here to comment on, put it in the chat or speak up. All right. Nothing to say here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, test automation, that I'm not too sure about that. So I might ask the Oracle people in the room to comment on that. I opened a view for the automation execution, and I saw the server credentials applet now allows you to add more than one record. And there's also parameters applet popping up. So I didn't find any clue in the documentation here. So is this something that is probably coming in the next release, the next Bookshelf version? Not too sure about that. Yeah, if anyone can chime in on this.
Give me a second. I'm trying to, I think that this may have just been snuck in or early, because there's an upcoming feature around test automation that I think.
Okay, like a bit premature.
Yeah.
Okay, because also
I'm trying to find the reference to it here because something looks weird.
Yeah. Okay. That just
I just reviewed the training for this like yesterday, so it shouldn't, which means it should be a future thing because the training hasn't been released yet. Yeah. I think this probably had something to do with a feature that's coming in a couple releases, most likely.
Okay, so we can ignore it for now, and kind of confirms my suspicion because it's like completely undocumented and just popping up in that view.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's my best guess because I mean I'm not close to that, but I do see that there is a test automation feature that's coming out in a few releases. So that's probably what happened.
Yeah. Okay, because the nosy person that I am, I just started playing around with it and didn't do anything. so yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, and as Brian, as you know, I'm particularly fond of this HTML report that the post install and the repository upgrade spit out at the end. And noticed some enhancements there. There is like a number of items now displayed in every accordion panel. So it gives you a good overview of the number of changes you have there in seed data, manifest, schema, etc. And so looks a bit refurbished to me, and it's always good to see that get some attention there. An important report, especially if you have a large gap like 20.6 to 22.9, which I ran. And so you want to make sure that everything runs correctly there, especially the repository upgrade. We discussed last month, repository upgrade gets longer and longer the longer you wait. And spanning more than 2 years, there's like several hours of runtime. And you just want to make sure, at least with the report and log files, that everything was in order. Yeah, and there we are. So that's the features I would like to point your attention to. Not too sure about the availability of 22.9 because it kind of was removed from the list.
Yeah, I was going to tell you guys about that if this is a good time. So what happened is that someone, quote, fixed a supposed security issue, and in doing so broke the migration application. And so we have password protected future downloads of 22.9 while we wait for a fix for that we will then give customers who want 22.9, we'll give them that, and then they'll be able to install it and then install what we call a POC on top of it. So just like a little quick fix kind of thing on top of it that will address that problem. There is a workaround. If someone needs the workaround, today, let me know, and Carrie or I can tell you what to do. It's not horribly difficult, but it was frustrating because it also went undocumented, so it made it kind of even worse. So anyway, so we just wanted to password protect so that we know who's getting it, so we can tell each customer or partner, whoever downloads it, either to do the workaround or once the patch is available to apply the second patch as well.
Okay.
So that's what's going on with that. And it for everything else, it's totally fine. It was just like it caused a problem with migration. And so we didn't want people to end up in a situation where they couldn't run a migration, obviously.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that's the migration. Let's
the migration
not say more. Yeah, migration application is affected by a security fix/bug. Okay, and so that's the reason.
Yeah, it's one of these fixed one things and broke the other.
Yeah, that happens. Happens to the best. Okay, so thanks for the update here, Brian. So 22.9 is indeed out there, but it's controlled release, and there's a workaround for this bug available.
That's just to make sure we tell everybody who tries to download it. We don't, it's easily workaroundable, but
Oh,
people don't always read the alerts and the whatever. So
yeah.
being careful.
Okay, so yeah, that's it from my side on 22.9. The highlights, the many little things and the big things. Yeah, next on the list is announcement. I talked to Richard Spearman earlier today. There was, maybe you noticed, there's an interesting campaign going on. There's a link on LinkedIn. I saw the article. There's upcoming in October and November, December. There's Oracle Apps Unlimited Days in Europe. I wanted to talk quickly about that. So let me open the page. There we go.
Do you want me to say a few words, Alex?
Oh, Richard, you're here. Yeah, that's great. Didn't see you. Sorry. Yeah, sure. Please do. You know much more about it than I do.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much indeed for this. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the Siebel CRM pre-sales lead for Western Europe within Oracle, and I'm supporting our Apps Unlimited team. So the Apps Unlimited team, the sales team, is responsible for selling all of the Oracle on-premise applications products. So that's Siebel, obviously, eBusiness Suite, Hyperion, JDE, PeopleSoft, and also Agile as well, as it happens. So we sell those products. There's a team around Europe. What we're doing is we're organizing a set of outreach days throughout November and December. And we're going to be going out there and just talking about Applications Unlimited. We'll be presenting the product roadmap. So in each session there'll be an introduction from Paul McCartan, who heads up Apps Unlimited within Western Europe, and we'll then have some product-specific tracks. And for those of you that know John Bedford, the strategy manager, he's probably going to be presenting at some of the sessions, if not all of them. And I will also be arranging some presentation slots for Siebel. So there are a couple of breakout tracks throughout the day. We'll have lunch and so on. So it's a great opportunity to meet other customers, meet partners, and hear the latest news on Siebel. And the registration details are up on the website at the moment. Please go along and register and pass the message on to anybody else that you know who might be interested in these events. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Richard. I pasted the URL in the chat so everybody can go there, register for the event of choice. I see UK, Spain, Nordics, France, Italy, Benelux, and Germany as well. So I will also try to attend at least 2 of these events. So will be great to see you there. Okay, all right.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Alex.
And well, that's a welcome addition for, of course, on top of the Oracle Cloud World in Las Vegas, for anyone who can't make it to Las Vegas. If you're based in Europe, so you might make it to, well, lovely Spain or Paris. Okay, so yeah, then I was sifting through my videos that I posted over the last few weeks on YouTube. Yeah, I had the privilege to work on quite a few interesting areas of Siebel CRM in my consulting engagements, and one was about importing attachments or creating attachments programmatically by reading a file. So I just wanted to put it to you and also point you to the video I made. So here we are on the Siebel Hub YouTube channel. You know where it is. And there's that video here. make sure it's, well, it's playing ads, of course. So waiting out this ad a little bit. Okay. Yeah, so importing attachments, I would like to get your feedback from the crowd, from the group. Especially there are two types of people, like there are base64 people. So you convert the file to base64 streams, and then you use XML, SOAP, or even REST API, and import the base64, and ta-da, you have an attachment. But what if the system that produces the file just spits out the file in a folder, and you don't have the resources, let's say, to make that base64 conversion and call a REST or SOAP API? Have you come ever across these kinds of requirements?
I'm not sure I'm following you.
Okay, well, the thing is that when you have a requirement to take any file and import it, let's say, as an attachment for, let's say, a service request, and then there are two choices. There's converting it to base64 and using REST or SOAP or XML, XML or JSON, and call the API and, well, have an attachment created for you. And the particular customer's problem there was that they have a bunch of files sitting in a folder, and they cannot convert them to base64, nor can the external system call REST or SOAP. So we were working on that, on a solution there, and the solution was quite simplistic, because Oracle or Siebel systems back in the day had, before base64, I guess, had the same problem with email response. So yeah, let's get it. So here's a standard workflow process. Just a video running here. You can watch that. So there's standard workflows in email response. Anyone using email response? Be interesting. Yeah, put it in the chat, yes or no. So email response, well, reads emails, obviously, from a mail server. There was this, well, big discussion last month about Microsoft Online, but any other mail server will do. And if that email has an attachment, that workflow actually strips it off and adds it as an attachment to the resulting service request, for example. So if you use those standard workflows, there are standard business services. So we isolated then those business services and were successfully able to use that isolated business service along with a little bit of eScript helper to do the same and really create the attachment. So I'm just trying to figure out the step here.
Alex, how did you get the attachment to get into Siebel?
Yeah, that's what I'm. Well, you can see it here in that screen. Well, that's the business service in question. Inbound email manager, and it has a method called add attachments, and it reads a child hierarchy where you pass in one or more paths to the file. So basically, the folder and the file name in a child hierarchy property set. And that's how you point to those files. And of course, it has to have read access to those files.
I see.
And then it picks up the files, creates the attachment. So no base64 involved. No. And the funny story is we ended up calling that workflow process via REST.
Okay, but so you're not actually doing an inbound request necessarily. It's sort of goes out to the file system and gets it.
Yeah, basically the external system in that customer's scenario, they have a program written that strips off the attachments from emails, figures out is it a new or existing service request, and then calls that workflow via Siebel Inbound REST API to basically pass the attachment file names to Siebel, and Siebel picks it up.
Okay.
So this was quite interesting. I was so intrigued I recorded that video to make sure it is available for posterity.
And one more question, Alex, if you don't mind. Why couldn't they be converted to base 64? Is it they had images or something in them? Movies?
No, they just didn't have the resources to do it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I was my first approach to say, okay, you have that custom program that extracts the files, pick a library, convert it to base 64, but base 64 always requires you, if you're on the outside of Siebel, to wrap it in an envelope, XML Siebel message, you know. And if you just have the file, they say, there's a file, can you please attach it to that SR? So that was the solution. Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting field of Siebel, working with attachments.
Hi, Alex.
Yeah, hi, Chris.
Chris. Hi again. Did you see that? I think Siebel response is working in different mode if you have a bigger attachment. I think there's a limit how the email response is working.
Yeah,
with attachments.
Not aware of
So
that.
you might consider this in your.
Yeah, well, maybe the standard email response, but the customer was not using the standard workflows. They licensed.
Okay.
I think I know what you're talking about, and it's a slightly different scenario. It's if the email content itself is too big for the column.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Then because it's like 2,000 characters or whatever it is, right? And then when that happens, we can't stuff the entire email body into that column, obviously. So when that happens, email response actually generates an additional attachment.
That's right.
To the activity, and it saves that as an activity attachment. And then at runtime, because if you're a user, you want to look at the email body, the object manager is smart enough to recognize the situation, and it will go pull the entire email body out of the attachment and show it in the UI, because the UI is not limited, by the size of the column. So I think that's probably what you're talking about, which wouldn't apply here.
Yes, you are right. You're right.
Yeah.
Just something seen years ago, so there was a hint in my mind. Yes, but I think that's the scenario.
Yeah,
it's actually an interesting thing, because you can actually force that to happen if for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be an email. It could be anything. If you happen to have something you want to stick in the comments field on an activity and it's bigger than 2,000 characters, you can actually use the same technique, and it will, and the OM will figure it out.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you ever come across it, there's a way to deal with it. Without having to increase the size of the actual column.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
it's a kind of a large column as a file.
Yeah, extremely large object or something.
Yes.
ELO. Yeah. Okay.
2,000 is actually not much if you start thinking about maybe taking meeting minutes or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can run out.
Yeah. So, okay. So plenty of big file stuff going on, and lots of projects, of course. We have all seen the file systems with like millions or tens of millions of files. So customers use that quite a lot. Okay, so that was the one particular video I made, and then I came across another requirement which I made up a few years ago when I looked at the migration application, created a training material. In the migration application, you have this list of business services, basically migration services that the migration application uses or calls. you know, migration schema service and all that. So give me a moment while I locate the video. And so has anyone worked with, well, I guess a lot of people have worked with the migration application. Am I right? Or everybody up to now? And anyone come across of customizing the underlying business services? Or even creating a custom migration service? Christian says not yet. Okay. So yeah, there we go. Okay. So there is this video I have. So I know it's small on your screen. Sorry for that. So here you see Siebel tools. You can see those migration business services, right? So they start with migration, and they are wired into the migration application. So there's a migration schema service, which, well, is behind the schema service resource and so forth. And they all have these very interesting user properties where basically concatenate command lines at runtime. And sometimes you come across customers wanting to, for example, add a parameter to, well, data imp or DDL imp or whatever. And Oracle tells in support, Oracle support tells the people, okay, you can go in here and you can carefully modify those user properties so you have a custom behavior of that standard business service. And sometimes you just don't want to touch the standard, or you want to deviate a little bit more. So you can copy these migration business services. Let's say pick one that does closely what you want to do. So my customer wanted a custom data imp behavior. So I copied the migration application data service, and they wanted a pre-delete clause. So they want to clean up data before it's imported. That you accomplish by a specific parameter. I think it's W, which is not in the standard. So I created a custom service called migration application data service with pre-delete and added that parameter in the user props. And the magic starts actually with 2 text files in the Siebel webinf folder on the external application container. So one is resource sequence.txt, and it even has instructions how to modify it. So basically, do not modify the standard, but you can add, basically you register your business service there. So which I did here, line 19, if you can make it out. And you can copy an existing line to not miss any of the syntax. You know, those colons are important, etc. So, but make sure it has your name. And then there's a second file, which is a bit larger. It's a JSON file. It's orchestration.json. And that has import and export resources listed. So you have to maybe enter it twice if you use it for import and export. So again, I copied an existing section and made the change to reflect my new business service. So these are the 2 text files you have to modify, then restart the whole lot, basically restart the Tomcat. And let me show you in the video. Yeah, so after refreshing your connections, you see the custom service popping up without migration. It strips off migration and uses the name without migration. And then you can just select it like a resource in your migration plans. And will run accordingly, according to the command line user properties or whatever you do there. So quite exciting, I would say, and it's totally feasible and even halfway documented. So any comments on that?
I would just caution you to be careful.
Yeah, sure. Be careful with that. So, like,
yeah, don't. I mean, if you were to do something, for example, that were to, because I mean, you could do anything with this, right? I mean, you could write something that connected with ODBC and used SQL or something. Like you could do some damage if you weren't.
Yeah, sure. Well, SQL, bad idea. Yeah.
I mean, just whatever. Yeah. Well, at one point, some customers had asked us for a migration service that could allow you to pass in arbitrary SQL. And I said, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Yeah, of course. That's well, select state. I always say a select statement is okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But anything else, bad idea.
Anything else is not okay, of course. But this is, I try to follow really the path of Oracle, creating that business service, using a copy of that special class business service, and doing something similar but different. So if you want a separate resource, it's perfectly doable and supported. So that's that. There's Jon chimes in with also possible to use ADM, of course. Yeah, ADM projects, bit less stressful. Yeah, if your task is about, well, for example, data maps, deploying data maps, migrating data maps, then ADM is your tool of choice. Yeah, sure. Okay, so I pasted the link to the videos in the chat. You can put them there. There's also an article mentioned. Not sure if it's a... Yeah, let me go quickly to that article, the Siebel Hub, where that's like 2 years ago. So when I completely made this one up. I created a business service which can invoke Server Manager. so you have a business service to concatenate the Server Manager command line, for example, to point to an input file where you have commands to run during migration or after migration, or as the last step in a migration, like a restarting component. So that was my way of thinking there. Okay, so then I was extending. Before I go on, Frank has a question. What would be the use cases leading you to create this kind of migration business service? Yeah, Frank, the one use case was the customer wanted a data import service, like there is an existing one, the migration data service, but they wanted to be able to specify a where clause to delete records before the import happens, which is a standard feature of data imp. And I recommended not to modify the existing one. It would delete always. So they have a choice now. They have a service which pre-deletes data and a service which does not pre-delete data. Okay, Frank? Yeah.
I really liked your second, or that last example you gave of having it do something with maybe the server manager or similar. I think that's a really interesting thing to do. You could force a component restart or something.
Yeah, in the light of the data dictionary issue, which you sometimes have to do it and sometimes not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's some interesting things you could do with that. I like that idea.
Or that might even be an idea for a standard business service. Yeah. Okay. Right. I was surprised that I could get by with it. Create a business service which runs Server Manager in the background. So that's like, wow. Server Manager as a service. Nick says he has created an export integration based on the repository, and since production does not have these tables, it would be nice to migrate them. Okay, that's an old story. The design repository tables being empty in test and production. Yeah, Nick, I feel you. I used to say they're empty for a reason, so don't. But yeah, so always talk to Oracle before you mess with those tables, I would say, especially in, yeah, like Brian said, any write operation, any data manipulation, too late to say. Okay. All right. So yeah, and then I was working on updating some training slides for OpenUI, for an OpenUI training that I did, and I was working with developers there, front-end developers, who use Vue.js and the IdeaPort Riga Nexus Bridge, so very advanced, and they learned basically JavaScript. They started learning JavaScript when they came out of college, like 4 years ago. So very young people working with Siebel, that's always great to see. And I was noticing they didn't take me very seriously when I showed them the example code from the OpenUI class, which is like full of variable declaration, you know, with a variable Alex is like so, and another variable and another variable. And they were like, you know, cringing even, say, okay, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with variable? And they say, nobody writes variable. Nobody writes var. I say, okay, what do you write then? I say, yeah, you write let. Okay. I heard about let, yeah, and it's a valid way of declaring a variable, and it has, now I know it has block scope. Not in eScript, not eScript, but JavaScript. So the browser side thing, OpenUI, yeah. And of course, the modern browsers, they support more than the ECMA 5 or even 4 that we have learned. If you learned JavaScript like 20 years ago, like I did, it was ECMA 4 or 5, and there was no let or const. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe I'm the wrong person to teach JavaScript stuff to people who have just picked up JavaScript a few years ago, because they learned that. They learn using let. They learned that var is old school and don't use it. And it's not just let. I was personally, I was really surprised, and I was ashamed a little bit. I missed out on a lot of opportunities. That ECMA script 6 has so many interesting features. It even has classes and all that stuff. Now, bear with me when as I open the video. I was so excited about it. Put together a video, which is now part of the OpenUI training. Made it free, available free, so every Siebel JavaScript practitioner, so to speak, can work with that and maybe pick up some of these things. It's not like you have to do it. It's backward compatible. So here I'm in the video now, sending you the link in the chat. So again, there's a whole video which you can watch for free, or when you take the OpenUI class, I've incorporated it in OpenUI, my OpenUI training, discussing the new features for Siebel boomers, I call it, like myself, in ES6. So you see there's 20 different features that you will find useful or less useful. I was particularly fond, and anyone who does a bit of advanced OpenUI, for example, you will get along promises. So let me see if I can find it. Yeah. So not sure if you heard about it. Probably a bit too advanced for generic Siebel Friday, but many standard functions return promises like fetch, and you can write your own functions that return a promise, so you can act with a callback function. And yeah, a discussion on the chat is going on. Pedro says, by the way, are there any plans for upgrading the eScript engine. And Carrie has answered not yet what features are you anticipating. So yeah, well, now this door has been opened. eScript is, correct me if I'm wrong, Carrie, it's ECMA 4.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, ECMA 4.
You basically want it to be ECMAScript 6 compatible?
Yeah, I'm just see the his ECMA 4 is like 20 plus years old.
Yeah.
ECMA script, and now there's a yearly update. They have really picked up pace. ECMA script is 2015. So it, well,
the basic idea here though is don't think of scripting as your first solution to everything. There's so much you can do with configuration that we'd rather you did it that way first,
of course,
rather than saying, hey, what great things can we do with script, and just doing it that way. Those are much harder to maintain and upgrade. Not that we wouldn't consider updating our engine, we just don't want that to be your primary and first resource.
Indeed, you're totally right, Carrie. I agree with you 100%. I'm the first person in the classroom to say you will learn eScript here, but the first thing you learn about eScript is don't write it. The best script you write is the script you never write. But if you write eScript, let's say as a person who graduated from a college 6 years ago and looks at eScript and says, okay, this looks like JavaScript, but very weird JavaScript, and I can't do maps, I can't do promises. So maybe just adding my 2 cents to the discussion here, or developers can benefit from a modern eScript engine which supports ECMA script 6, because they'll really like features that you would like, just randomly picking maps and sets. Map and set operations are much more advanced than just using arrays, or array functions are there, like Pedro says. Yeah, Pedro obviously having spent some time with ECMA 6. Yeah. So as a developer, there are things there that you would really like to use on the Siebel server as well. I agree. And I totally agree that you shouldn't write eScript in the first place. Yes. Okay. So did I paste the video? Not. Yeah, I pasted the video URL. So these videos are all for free on the Siebel Hub YouTube channel, which also will host this recording in a few days max. All right. So yeah, just wanted to let you know what I've been thinking about the past few weeks, and wanted to hear your story, your thoughts about it. Any comments from your side? Any ECMA 6 feature that you're particularly fond of? Carrie is taking this into consideration. Okay, thanks. Frank says every Siebel professional should have learned that before working with Siebel. You're referring to the don't write script. Yeah, we're currently upgrading a 15-year-old Siebel 77.7. Okay, and full of eScript made by different developers, sometimes bonkers. Yeah, we all seen it, I think. And Pedro says, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, Frank and Pedro, me too. So I can remember one project where we took, I had to work on literally hundreds of applets with browser script, which have been copies of another. So they have been copying the applets and copied the browser script along. Ended up with 200 plus applets with browser script, which was basically the same. And during the upgrade project, we basically got rid of all the browser script because they were going open UI, and were able to replace it with one open UI library. probably 500 lines of code. And that's it. So that's a story. You can recover from these, well, let's say mistakes sometimes, or misled decisions. And Christian also says, same old story, write the code so that everyone can read it years later. Yeah, and especially yourself. So when I see some code like, oh, what Git wrote this code? It was me 3 weeks ago. Okay, then it sure wouldn't survive any scrutiny there. Yeah, even ECMA4 allows you to enter comments in the code. Yeah, Nick. Good variable names. Yeah, we're listing. Keep going, listing some best practices for scripting from the Siebel boomers to the next generation. Yeah, good variable names, not ABC. And don't copy scripts. Yeah, Kerry, that's my personal nightmare when you copy that contact BC with 2 megatons of scripting. You copy it into custom one, you copy that script over. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay, I think we got a topic here for another Siebel Friday. So the best script you ever write is the script you never write. And when you write script, it's not your best script, but make it the best script you can do. What about that? New topic?
Yeah, Alex, years ago, I made a presentation for an open world where I took common customer use cases that they write in script and showed how to do it in configuration. I think your store of knowledge probably have tons of those.
Yeah, sure. Any live examples, albeit anonymized, would be sure great.
Well, yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, but because that's when I was in expert services and I was in contact with customer script every day, and I would just see it and say, no, you can do this with a workflow, or this is a runtime event, or some user property on the BC, or a calculated field, or something like that. But I think many people write script because they know it and they don't know configuration as well.
Right.
So they turn to the thing they know just because they have a deadline, they have to get it done.
It's the
if they had an easy,
the least
you're doing
resistance.
This, replace it with this.
They go with the path of least resistance. They know how to e-script, right. And so they e-script everything. Yeah, that's a big problem. That's what I, as an instructor, of course, struggle to transport. That configuration is king, and yeah,
but if everyone writes script, then you can search there, and you do not search. Was it a runtime or was it an update field property? So you always check 10 different ways where it is, and then everything is mixed.
That's a
trade-off.
That's a point that I hear a lot. So yeah, if we don't use eScript, we have to use runtime events plus state model plus workflow plus, and we have no insight where our developers do anything.
Right.
I think
that's why
that's a problem with documentation then.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to say here's what we needed to do, and here's how we did it.
And that's a solution document.
And you might even include in that documentation, here's what we thought of doing in eScript and did do.
Yeah. Right.
Just so that when the developers are going through the code that does exist and they see it, they say, oh wait, they solved this problem in another way, but not here.
Yeah. Well, you know what the fate of documentation in projects is.
Yeah, it's the last thing they do, and there's no time for it.
And it's even there's a big misunderstanding in all the agile methodology or whatever, that people think documentation is bad. It's not. It's just not the focus of the project. Of course, the focus is on the solution, but you always have to document your solution, because the next consultant coming in, or even your own self after a few months coming back into the project, you can read up exactly what was the solution.
I think this is one problem that we have in Siebel, doing the same things on the same mode. on the same manner.
You mean by scripting?
No, not by scripting. So you have a kind of culture and style in a Siebel application, and if developers change, then there comes a different style.
Mm-hmm. If you don't
so
have
if you have a
style guide, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So use on-field update set, or use workflow policies, or use runtime, but not use it all mixed, whatever you come to mind.
In one project, and I might dig it up. It's in my archive, some disk drive. I worked on a checklist for solution mapping. Basically, you could look up, I want to update a field, for example, when something happens. And then the first hit in the checklist would be, okay, did you consider, like I said, on-field update set user property? And the last line in that checklist is, okay, you tried everything, you considered everything, you landed on the last line, and that says, okay, you have to write a custom script. Because, and we, in that same project, we had a style guide for eScript. So like Nick comes with variable names, BC contact or contact BC, or Hungarian notation, or the kebab case, or whatever case. So specific notation, and then you separate the wheat from the chaff, literally, of developers who know what Hungarian notation is or not. Not sure if it's used in college or whatever. And Kerry comes up with S set.
Yeah, that's string in Hungarian notation.
Oh yeah.
But Alex, the thing that you're saying, this is all good, and what I think was it Peter or was it Christian? You definitely want to document it, and yes, your development team probably will change, but perhaps the project manager or someone in charge should be the one in charge of setting the standards of what the development team will do. You're not going to just use your favorite tool because you're here and you're doing it. These are the ways we do it at this company, and have that documented so that when the new development team comes, there's not a huge change in style. It's, hey, follow these documents. This is what you do.
I always thought of this like Siebel Systems, and now Oracle, of course, for 15 plus years, having the developing Siebel internal code and also business services, etc. You guys sure have it all sorted out. Now you have proper documentation, style guides, product managers who deserve the title, and and Frank comes up with checklists or things like that. Maybe it would be beneficial to have some of that public. Like, okay, this is how we configure Siebel CRM, and this is because that's how customers should do it. Thinking of the old roadmap, that's which was a methodology that Siebel Systems used internally, and then published it to customers. Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's quite a nice discussion about this, and sure warrants a separate Siebel Friday.
I have a 10-slide show about the book clean code and the first 3 principles adapted to Siebel, but it's in German. So
we can translate that.
We can translate it in another's Open Friday.
Sure. So yeah, if you guys want to send me anything, or want to have a quick presentation about how you do it in your projects, tackle these problems with too much script or bad scripting, then please send it along by email, and we'll put something together for next Friday. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we have reached the end of that Friday. Is there anything else to say before we close down? Stefan has to leave. Okay, Pedro, thanks to you too. All right, so I'll stop the recording now. Thanks to everyone, and yeah, have a great weekend and remaining Friday. See you next time or earlier. Bye-bye.
Bye.